We have an apology from Andrew Noon, who's on council business at Port Chalmers, and Councillor Kell. Any further apologies? I move that those be sustained. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, no. That's agreed. I'm not aware of any issues in respect of item 2. Does anyone else have anything that needs to be added to the agenda? Thank you. We move on to noting item 3. We need to confirm the agenda as it stands, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, no. That's agreed. And that takes us to the substance of the meeting, the draft submission to the Local Government Act Amendment Bill. Can I ask the staff to come up? I'd like councillors to have an opportunity, even though we've been around the houses, or a lot of us have been around the houses a bit on this and had a really good level of involvement. There may still be some questions, but I'd like to thank the staff for the opportunity that's been provided for people to do that and air their concerns. I think the report is pretty self-explanatory and mechanical in the way it proceeds. And after some questions, what I'm going to suggest we do is go through those key policy decisions that we need to make, and then go through the submission page by page to confirm or decide on the case of where there is an option, if that's an acceptable process to everyone. All right, so can we just start with any pressing questions that remain unanswered or need further elaboration? Who has such? Councillor McTavish.
I've got one, and it's on page 6 of 7 of the actual submission, so I'm not sure whether or not you want to take it now or whether you want to take it when we get to that page, Mr Chair.
Page 6?
Page 6 of 7 or 410.
Yep.
It covers the issue of objection and reconsideration processes. I believe one member during the workshop queried whether or not there was going to, where the costs of that would lie, and whether we needed to submit on ensuring that councils were not subject to covering the costs of those processes. Was any work done on that to clarify that, or... Sorry, I probably should have emailed it through before.
Okay, so we did have a look at that, and the bill would put the costs onto the objector.
Thank you.
Okay. And that's included in the submission? You've checked that?
I don't think it needs to be, sorry.
Right,
but yeah, fine. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, you're happy? Other questions? Councillor Van der
On 4.7, recommendation 3, that expenditure projections for years 11 to 30 of infrastructure strategy need not be published at an annual level. I can still remember when this council used to strike a rate based on information that was 7 years old. We're now talking about looking 30 years into the future. Does that create a lot of extra work for staff? And do you think it makes sense to try and project a budget 30 years into the future, given that we've got no idea where interest rates, asphalt, concrete, or any other costs are going? Is this a bureaucratic exercise that actually has a point, or is 30 years just some kind of fond projection?
In some areas, we already do those projections, particularly in renewals. Water infrastructure that would require some extra work in other areas, but the infrastructure teams don't think it would be too much work. But putting it at that detailed annual level would require quite a bit of extra work and making some significant assumptions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'd share your concern about that, and I think the way the comment is couched in the submission is appropriate. Councillor Hawkins?
Thanks, Mr Chairman. At the bottom of 4.3, under option 2B, support the proposed definition, it says that to be consistent with the rest of the submission, it's proposed that no specific recommendation be made if the council supported the proposed change. And I wonder, consistent with what, I mean, there are plenty of places in the draft submission attached where we are supportive of some of the proposed changes, so why wouldn't we do that should option 2B be passed?
So that refers to a numbered recommendation. So we haven't made a numbered recommendation where we specifically support change. The recommendations in there are where we recommend a specific change.
Right.
Okay, further questions anywhere? Councillor Bazet.
Yeah, consultation and engagement is number 7 under the special consultative procedure for the long-term plan. How will staff manage that? Because in my view, that process has been often put into place based on staff's assessment of whether it should be or not, and it's a hard thing to gauge. So what are the disciplines with regards to staff around whether it's a special consultative process or not?
So at the moment, the bill specifically requires the council to use the special consultative procedure in a number of instances. The bill would change that. It would only be required to do it for the long-term plan and bills where there are significant effects. The council would have to adopt a significance and engagement policy by the end of this year, and that would set out council's approach to using the SCP in the future.
I mean, it's a good answer, but it doesn't get away from doesn't get away from the fact that there's a human element involved in that, making that decision. And you could talk to one member of the staff and they say, hey, this is a special consultative process, and another would say, hey, no, flag it. And that's the point I'm making. I don't know if there is an answer, to be quite honest, but I think we should be aware of it, because I think the process is obvious. Sometimes it's put into place for the right reasons and sometimes it's not.
Right, but nonetheless, subject to the passage of the bill, the pathway will be clarified and it will still have to come back to council to make.
I mean, we've got to have some process, so I accept that. That's sort of a nebulous.
All right, any further questions? That's great. You might want to stay there in case something comes up as part of the discussion. Thank you. I'm now suggesting that we go to page 42, excuse me, and noting the issues that have been highlighted in the report, both halves of it, about the difficulty of the time frame and so on. We go to the first decision where there are two options in respect of decision 1, and I'd like someone to move one or the other, and I have Councillor Thompson moving 1B, and that's seconded, 1B. Would you like to speak to that, please, Councillor?
Well, I just think it's the most sensible recommendation. I think that we should determine what our policy is within the broad framework, and to have it specified down to the level of detail that they wanted to, I don't think it's necessary. So that was my recommendation.
Thank you. Comment from the second?
Look, I agree with the mover, and I guess the other comment that I would add is that if the proposal, if option 1A, if the decision was coming to a new council, it would be very difficult in the event that you had a significant number of new members for those members to determine with any meaningful knowledge of processes whether or not it was appropriate to undertake a full review and of which activities, and so I think it's much better to have the 1B option in place, which gives the ability to do that but without the requirement.
Thank you. Is there any disagreement? Councillor Vanderbilt.
I was just going to say that if you're going to get a review for everything, I think you end up with a kind of review industry that is kind of superficial. And I'm thinking of the review, for instance, of the Carisbrook Stadium Trust that we had back in 2005, where it was just a very superficial review done, all sorts of things were ticked off, and it all trundled through anyway. I think we should decide what reviews we do. We should only do them if there is really an issue, and therefore support Councillor Thompson.
Mr Mayor, well, I support this too, and I think in adding to the comments of Councillor Vanders and Councillor McTavish, I think recommendation 1B allows council to consciously and transparently and in a measured way plan what they're going to review and when they're going to do it ahead of time. So you can prioritise and you know ahead of time, so people can be informed, councillors can be informed. So I think this is by far the better of the two options.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, no. That's agreed. That takes us to decision 2. I'm looking for someone who I'm assuming is going to move option 2A. I'm quite happy to do it. Moved by the Mayor. One would have to say, I commented earlier informally that this is very odd actually when you consider the decision that's come out of the Department of Internal Affairs here on this. I can't understand the reason for this. Someone may explain it to us one day, but I think it's obvious that we should oppose the definition as it's currently proposed. So the Mayor has moved and Councillor Wilson seconded. Further discussion? There appears to be none. I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, no. That's agreed. On page 4.4 then, we just really need to note that there are these two issues where the council submission diverges from that of LGNZ. So does anyone wish to, we're going to look at the submission as a whole in a moment. Does anyone want to make any comment about this or tease us out any further? No? Okay, that's good. Then let's go to the submission itself and we'll just do it quickly page by page. Clearly there are some decisions that have been made that will now become the text of that where that's highlighted. Is there anything on page 4.5 that raises any issues with anyone? Page 4.6. 4.7. 4.8. 9. 4.10. And the last half page. All right, well I'll move then that the submission... Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Landis.
Sorry, I don't mean to query anything, but I did have a sort of a general question. On 4.8 it talks about quorum having to be physically present. And I'm wondering, do we as yet have a policy with regard to all our meetings? In this regard, we've got Skype and we've got all sorts of new electronic methods of remote voting or being present, sort of. And I'm wondering, do we have a policy? Is this something that we need to address as a council?
I think it probably is. Can you bring us up to date?
I'm afraid I'm not certain. Pam, are you able to advise on that? That is
maybe it's a question for Sandy.
Okay.
We'll ask about it. I mean, I think it is clearly an issue in lots of areas where it is highly desirable and efficient to allow video conferencing, Skyping, some other form of presence other than physical presence. Is there currently a review of standing orders? Or
my understanding is that legally we are not permitted to have decision making made other than in person. And this is a step towards enabling that to a point. But I don't think legally would be precluded from having workshops or conferences or seminars. I think that's just my gut feeling about what the law is, not what our standing orders are.
Well, let's come back to everyone about that point. Thank you for reading us on that. Well, I move that the submission be approved as amended. I second Councillor McTavish. Any further discussion?
Just if I may, through the chair, I think your point was well made at the beginning that the process that staff have taken us through on this particular submission has been really good, and I've appreciated the ability to input to the degree that we have been able to, and I think the outcome is a really robust submission which I hope will be well received and read in great detail in Wellington.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate you reinforcing that compliment to the staff of the process, and it would be even better if we had a less pressured time over the holiday break to do things like this, but such is the way of government. All right, those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. That's agreed, and that brings us to the end of the last item, item 5. There are no other items to be raised. There appears to be none. I'll thank you for your attendance and close the meeting. Councillor Wilson, you have 10 minutes before you start.
13.